Good morning, fellow app makers. Welcome back to another video of how to implement in Google Maps to our Android Studio project. Behzad is here from Hey World Coder, and in today's video, we are going to get a location permission from our user. As you do remember, we left off from our Build Gradual app page last time, and we have already set up some changes. As you see, I highlight them from here to our SDK folder of our project. I have already set up some objectives for this lesson and we are going through them. The objectives for this lesson is we need to enable permissions in our manifest layout. Then we need to create a location permission request. We are going to follow just three simple steps. The first one is we need to initialize those permissions that we need for our application and getting access to location in our manifest. The second one is create initialized variables in our map page. And the third one is check the result of our permission request from our user. The aim for this lesson is location of our user. We're going back to our project. Here is where we left. The first step we need to do, just set up our permissions. Go on your left hand side on your project. The topmost folder is manifest, just open it up. And above your application, we need a few permissions. The first one is we need to have an access to the internet. So here is the third one. We need to have an access to this permission. If you don't have it, just simply write it down, use this permission, and as soon as you write down internet, it will automatically bring it up for you. Then we need to state permission, access network state. Third one is our find location. And fourth one is our course location. These are four permissions we initialized in our manifest, and we need to use them in this project. We are done here. Just close down your manifest folder, app folder, and we are going to our map page. Open up your Java folder, go to your map page, minimize here. Here is what you see. We need to do some changes here before going ahead. The first step is we need to create a tag for our project. Then everything else is correct. Just come down here, just write down on create. We set up our blocks. Now we need to copy and cut off this line of codes as our map fragment, and we need to paste it inside a separate method. Come below your on map ready. Created our method, just paste a line of codes here. Copy down your top comment, lock it down below, and this is how it works. We need a debugger for here. Our map fragment is ready. Now we need to set up some variables inside our field area. The first one is we need to initialize our course location. Private static final string course location equals to manifest. Make sure you're using the correct one. Dot permission dot course location semicolon. We need exactly the same thing for our find location. Private static final string find location, and it will be exactly the same as here, but the difference is we have to just write down find location here. Manifest, again, make sure you inserting correct class. Dot permission dot find location. We need two more variables. One of them is for our camera zoom we are going to use for our camera, and the second one is we need to give a code to the user in case if the application is going to ask for that code. The first one is our code, just private static final int request code equals to, this is the code, it could be whatever you want to do. Just I'd like to put it on 991. And we need one more for our camera results, a private static final and float camera zoom and equals to 15 float. These are the variables that we are going to use for this project. Then you're coming down here, you just write down private boolean. We need to have set up our access for our application that as initializing that permission to false. What does that mean? That means if someone's open up your application, automatically doesn't get access to the location, and that means we have to ask for access into the location, and that is basically increasing the security of your application. Just write down location permission request equals to false. We're starting with false and we do the changes later on. Then you're coming down here, we need a location variable. Make sure you're using correct one and cut it down as last location. And we need to have an fuse location permission. Fuse location provider client, and you're doing exactly the same and coming down here. So we initialize our variables that we are going to use in a second. Let's go back to our route to check what else we need to do. So we initialized our permission in our manifest. We created our variables in our map page, and we need to check the result of permission request from our user. Here is where we have to create our method to check that permission. Going back to our project, minimize on create, minimize your on map ready, minimize your initialize map, and below initialize map, here we need a method to ask for the location permission request from our user. As you see here, the description of this method is going to get a location permission request from our user, and it is going to be used inside our onCreate method. Come down here, you just write down private void check location permission request, and you're just creating it. Bring it down, copy your comment, drop it down. We need a debugger, location permission asked. That works. Now we need to create some permission variables here, and then we need to check them. Write down a string, creating an array string, call it permissions equals to. So inside your brackets, just write down manifest dot permission dot find location, comma. You're doing exactly the same thing for our course location. Just write down an if condition. We need to check and handle all of the conditions. So come here inside your if, just write down context compact dot check self permission. Write down this dot get application context, and we need to check the file location first, then equals to, we need to get a package manager dot permission granted. So let me bring it down so it will be easier to read. So here we need to check if the file location access has been granted. If it hasn't, we have to handle it. Just come down inside your else condition, write down activity compact dot request permissions. Here we need to use this activity, then we need to get our permissions, and we need to ask for that permission code that we have created here, request code, and just write down request code, and that will handle it. So inside our curly brackets, we need to check for course location exactly the same way if we ask for our phone location. Write down if else condition. Just copy whatever you got here, insert it inside the first if. Instead of the phone location, just change it to course location and do exactly the same thing. Cut off our location permission request equals to true. We need to initialize our map. And in an else, exactly doing the same thing. Activity compact dot request permission, this permissions request code. You may confuse here what actually went on, so I'll explain it in a second. So first thing, we need to create a variables or string array, because as I mentioned is we need to have them as a group, then it will be easier to handle them. We created a string array and we called it permissions. Then here we are checking the phone, accessing to the phone location, and if it's granted, so then we are going to the next step and we are going to check for course location. At the same condition, if that's been granted too, that means the user let us to have an access to their location permission. So that's why the location permission request will be true, and then we initialize our map method that we created here. If it's not that a case, in both conditions, we need to ask for the request code from our user. Copy our method inside our onCreate, that we are making sure we have a correct method in the correct place. Go above inside your onCreate, expand your method, and below here just write down check location permission request and all set. Let's try our app to see what comes up. When going online, as you see, location permission is asked, and if we allow the location permission, we are inside our map application. So as you see, everything is working fine. I don't want the length of this video is going above 15 minutes. That's why in next video we are going to handle the request from our user in case if they are giving a code or wrong code, or what will happen to the next. If simply I'm going to recap what we have done is we set up some of our accessing location permissions such as internet and accessing phone or course location from our manifest. Then we initialize some of the variables that we are going to use in our map page here in our field area. Then we created a method that we are going to check if the user let us to have an access to their location. Here hasn't been done yet. In next video we are going to handle if the user inserting a wrong code, what will happen, or actually if the user is going to deny to accessing the location permission, what will come up. So if you do have any question, please write down in a comment, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so to not missing any uploading videos we are uploading every day. Thanks for your time and watching, and I will see you all in next video.